HPP, the podcast that covers college basketball inside and out, and the NBA draft inside and out. I'm Rich Harris. Thank you for joining us again. Today I am joined by no one. Basically, people have been sick. The weather, the snowstorms, the winter storms have just caused havoc. And so we're doing the show late this week. What we're doing, I'm going to do a condensed version of the normal show, and we'll also have Tre Mitchell, Kentucky forward Tre Mitchell on the show. And then early next week, Tuesday should be, we'll have some of the guys back and we'll do our normal routine. So what we're going to do today is an abbreviated college notebook. We'll bring on Tre, and also we'll preview this weekend's games. I'll make my picks for the big games this weekend. So, oh, by the way, little story. Shout out to Dante Maddox, Toledo's scoring guard, great little scoring guard, who we had on the show. He's not that little, by the way. I think he's 6'3". We had him on the show this summer, and like I said, explosive scoring guard. And Toledo had the nation's longest winning streak for regular season games at 20. And I had asked Dante, because I knew he was a communications major. I knew he had interest in broadcasting and stuff like that. And when everyone was unavailable for this week, I asked Dante if he might like to join me as a co-host. And he was all in for it. But last night they played at Central Michigan, which I hear is an 8-hour bus ride from Toledo to Central Michigan. God, that sounds ghastly. And they lost a close one to Central Michigan. Had some defensive lapses. I'm pretty sure the coach is probably right now talking to them about defense rotations. They got beat on back cuts a lot and stuff like that. Even when they were playing zone, they gave up some dunks right down the middle because people just didn't rotate on time. And still close game. And Dante had a solid game, but their winning streak was broken, and you could tell by the expression on the coach's face he was not happy. So apparently they had an early film session today, and so Dante wasn't able to join us. But we're hoping to have him at least come on for one show, be a co-host. I think that would be really fun, and maybe even a regular thing. For him. We'll see, but I'm hoping we can at least do it once. So, all right, let's start off with the college hoops notebook. And I'll tell you what, there is a lot of news. And what we're going to do, since we're also a draft show, I'm going to start off with some injuries that don't involve college players, but they do involve two top 10 draft picks, looking like they're going to be top 10 picks. Perhaps both of these guys are in the running for the number 1 overall pick. And that's Alex Sarr, the French big man, who plays for the Perth Wildcats in the Australian NBL. He suffered a hip strain back in January, and he's not expected to be out until early February. So now there's some talk, will Sarr shut it down? I believe ESPN right now has him as the number 1 overall draft pick. We have him second, so that's how much we like him. And now I will say that Perth, as of right now, is in second place in the NBL. So, they have a really good shot at, winning the championship. And he's been an integral part. So I'm hoping that that will be enough for him to finish out the season. That would be nice. Always like it when guys, and I think it's a positive sign when guys stick it out, don't shut it down. Some guys, skip the whole season, knowing that they're going to get drafted. There's one kid who's doing that right now, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, the other top 10 pick, perhaps the number 1 pick, is Nikola Topic, or Topic. And He changed teams in December. He played for KK Mega. Um, and he is now playing for Red Star. Now, Red Star is a team that he always watched as a child. He also started his career with them, playing for their junior teams. And at the time, he said it was a dream come true to play for Red Star senior team and also compete in EuroLeague. So, and that's the thing, playing in the Adriatic League is one thing. Yeah, it's tougher than college basketball, but it's still not like EuroLeague. I mean, EuroLeague is the closest thing you can get to the NBA. And Red Star plays in EuroLeague, so he would be competing against the best that isn't in the NBA. But unfortunately, he suffered a knee injury in just his third game with Red Star, and he's projected to return in the middle of February. Now, he too, knowing that there's a good chance he's gonna lock to be a lottery pick, he could shut it down. But given what he said about wanting to play for Red Star and wanting to play in EuroLeague, I'm thinking that hopefully he'll play that out. Of course, you don't want to see any of these guys play at less than 100%. That would hurt their draft stock. But assuming they are 100%, it definitely be nice and see how Topic, who's been, blowing up statistically, just doing tremendous. Be nice to see how he can do in EuroLeague. So, speaking, another lottery pick was injured recently, and that's Isaiah Collier, the point guard from USC. Of course, he was the number one high school recruit coming out of college. Started off, the year looking like, the number one overall pick. Now, we've never had him number one on our draft board, but we've always had him in the top 10. And he suffered a broken right finger. And his draft stock, a lot of people had him number one. I know ESPN had him number one. And his draft stock has been dropping. Most people still have him in the top 10. So I who knows? If he doesn't come back, I mean, he should still be able to come back and compete at the end of the Pac-12 season and play in the Pac-12 tournament. Unfortunately, USC has been really struggling. Now, also Boogie Ellis, has been out for that team with a hamstring strain. Now, he supposedly has a good chance to play this weekend at Arizona State. Today, actually. We shall see. It'd be interesting if USC is healthy, except for Collier. There's been talk all season. I've heard this phrase said by multiple analysts, multiple people who are close to the team. And the phrase has been, people have been playing with their own agendas. Now, I don't know if that was said by Coach Andy Enfield and that's just being repeated by everybody. And I wonder who that could be, because this is a team that has a lot of draft prospects or a lot of guys who were supposed to be, high picks. It's a team full of relationships with NBA players. You have Bronny James, you have Kobe Johnson, whose brother Jalen Johnson plays in the NBA. You have Rodman. His first name's escaping me, but we have Dennis Rodman's son is on the team. So it's hard to say who it is, but the one thing I'm pretty clear on is it's not Bronny James. Bronny James is not the one. Everyone keeps on saying how he's a team player and not a me first guy. And it would look like that on the court. There have been times where, he maybe is too unselfish and doesn't take shots that he should be taking. And right now, Bronny is just playing so-so. And I would suspect Bronny's going to come back for another year unless his father pressures him to play. But, Bronny just doesn't look ready for the NBA. But anyway, it'd be interesting. Collier, I'm suspecting they were talking about Collier. very turnover prone, questionable shot selection. And I wonder if, when Boogie's back and everybody's back but Collier, it's going to be interesting to see how this team plays. All right, so moving on, big news yesterday. Terrence Shannon Jr. Had requested a temporary restraining order against the University of Illinois, who had suspended him because he was charged with felony rape in Kansas. And they basically said, you can't play until this situation's cleared up. And he basically asked for a restraining order, and a federal judge ruled on the matter and granted him that restraining order, which means he will be allowed to rejoin the team and play again. Now, the university, based on their comments, sounded like they weren't too happy about the judge's decision. Basically, from what I've read, it seems like the judge doesn't think the due process has taken place, that basically he's being found guilty. He's basically, guilty before innocent, that type of situation. When we're supposed to be innocent before proven guilty. And so, yeah. And now the question is, will the university actually put pressure on Brad Underwood not to play Shannon? Because he could be in uniform, he could be on the team, but that doesn't mean he's going to get on the court. I doubt that's going to be the case. I hope that's not the case. Shannon was having an All-American type season. To me, he's a first-round draft pick. Of the players that I've actually seen live this year, on the court, not on TV. He's the one that's, I haven't seen a ton of these guys, but Shannon is the one who has stood out to me. And I was like, I'm watching the game and saying, that guy's an NBA player. So yeah. So that should be good news. And we'll see where his case goes. It's rape is an unusual term given the circumstances, which I talked about last week. It would seem like sexual assault might be a more fitting term, because it's not what we generally. It certainly wasn't a case of what we generally think rape is. So yeah, I'm not going to comment anymore on that. It's a messy situation, but basically Terrence Shannon is should be allowed to play. All right, moving on, sticking in the Big Ten. Last night, Indiana lost at Wisconsin, who's moved up already to number 11 in the polls. And Kalel Ware didn't play for Indiana because he had injured his ankle in practice this week. And then during the game, Xavier Johnson, who's been in and out of the lineup for the past few years, aggravated the ankle injury that he just returned from, and he didn't return to the court. Of course, that was late in the game, so there's no word on how long or how severe he is hurt. Johnson is kind of key to that team in the sense that they really don't have talent at guard. This is a really team that just really has a lot of good bigs, but not doesn't have the talent at guard. Ware, of course, has been their most productive player, potential lottery pick. But we're not sure when they're going to be back. All right, moving on to Duke. Mark Mitchell and Jeremy Roach are both nursing knee injuries. Roach is closer to returning and could play against Pitt this weekend. Actually, both could play, but right now, the word I heard is that Roach, of the two, is probably more likely to play. Tamin Lipsey, the dynamic point guard for Iowa State, he's having a tremendous season. It's considered questionable to doubtful this weekend versus TCU. He suffered a shoulder sprain this week, so we'll see about that. Henry Coleman, Texas A&M big man, he has a chance to play on Saturday at LSU. He missed the game at Arkansas, where Wade Taylor went off for 41 points in that game. but basically the guards were forced, to carry the day because they had no one on the inside really to go to for interior offense, and A&M ended up losing that game at Arkansas. So, and not sure what Coleman's injury is. So we shall see, but got the sense that it wasn't serious. And like I said, I've been told there's a good chance he'll play this Saturday at LSU. All right, so Doug McDaniel, point guard for Michigan, team's leading scorer. He has been, this is the weirdest suspension I've ever heard. And I don't even know if you could call it a suspension. But he's not going to play in the team's road games until further notice. So when Michigan would probably need him the most, he won't be there. Of course, Michigan has lost 5 of their last 6. It's not looking so good for the Wolverines this year. As I said, the official statement had no specific reason given, but Juwan Howard kind of indicated that it's so McDaniel can stay at home and focus on his academics. So apparently his grades are slipping, and they just want him to get his grades up. And so I guess if he does that, he'll be allowed to play on the road. All right. Interesting, as long as we're on Michigan, there's been a lot of stuff that has gone on in Michigan, but it's kind of been spread out over time. So people really aren't like talking about it. But first they had Caleb Love commit there, and then he decommitted and went to Arizona. They had the kid from Argentina over the summer. Big man, like power forward. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he couldn't. They kind of made a big deal of his signing. Now, I must admit, I wasn't too excited on him. He played 1 year in the Argentinian league and didn't play very effective. And the Argentinian league isn't really. It's probably equivalent to, I don't know, mid-major ball. And he wasn't that impressive there. But anyway, Michigan kind of made a big deal out of it. But he isn't on the team right now. And it seems like he didn't speak English good enough to actually take classes at Michigan. You think that would be something you would have looked into before you said this guy, gave this guy a scholarship. So I don't think he ever enrolled in school. So I don't even think he's officially a member of Michigan at this point. And then you had the fight between Jace Howard and the strength coach, and apparently Juwan Howard got involved in that mix-up, and this was all like in the weight room. And then people were saying Howard's already kind of on thin ice at Michigan. Apparently he's kind of like on probation, and if there's one, because of the punch throwing incident against Wisconsin, I guess that was 2 years ago, and supposedly he's like on a zero tolerance policy, and he got mixed up in that fracas. So now, of course, not a lot has been made about that, but the one thing I do know is the strength coach, at least last time I heard, is like on a leave of absence. So I don't know. Michigan had a really lousy recruiting year. Didn't bring in a lot of guys from the portal. They're having a horrible year. Last year, the team totally underachieved. I got to think that all these things that are happening at Michigan. That Howard, of course, he had to miss time because of his heart. He had a heart operation. But I got to think that, he might be on thin ice just for the totality of everything. But now we'll move on to Oregon, and they got some really good news this Thursday. Not only did N'Faly Dante return to action, he played pretty much the whole game. Did look somewhat out of shape, did look winded. Didn't seem like the N'Faly Dante. It seemed like he just wasn't ready, just wasn't himself. But I assume he's just got to get back in shape. But also Nate Biddle, who's returning from a broken wrist, he played 1 minute in that game, very late. It was a blowout. And so, yeah, basically, and Mookie Cook, 4-star freshman, top 30 recruit, recently recently got healthy and joined the team. And so now Biddle, Dante, Cook are all, playing. And obviously they all got to get back into playing shape, but the Ducks are close to being 100% healthy, and they've been doing great without these guys. Interestingly enough, their 6-game winning streak with with these guys returning was snapped on Thursday at Colorado. But Colorado's a really good team, tough place to play. So I'm not making much of that, but I think Oregon's a team we really got to watch. And kudos to them for doing so well with so many players. Their point guard, Shellstat, he missed like the first 5-10 games because he was hurt. And they kept it together. I mean, they won most of their games, and they're in first place in the Pac-12. Another team is getting healthy, and that's Wake Forest. And what great news for them. Damari Monsanto, wing forward, small forward. He got hurt at the end of last year. He was really playing well. And finally, he's been cleared for basketball and should be available for Saturday's game against Louisville. And also, backup point guard Jao Ituka should also be available. He was a transfer who barely played last year before getting hurt, and he was pretty highly regarded. Now, of course, Mookie Miller has been doing really great at point guard for Wake Forest, so I think Ituka, is definitely going to be playing a backup role. But Monsanto, if he's close to basketball shape, I mean, one of the best off dribble shooters in the country. He can make some crazy shots, got deep range. He's a shooter and he's a scorer, and if he's healthy, he should be one of the best in the ACC. So Wake Forest, they've been doing pretty well. They've been doing good, but I think this is going to take them up to a notch to put them near the top of the ACC. All right, so what would a show be without news about Memphis and the Memphis Tiger basketball program? So Mikey Williams, believe this or not, transferred to Central Florida, but it is very unlikely that he will play for UCF this season. Apparently, UCF, being a state school in Florida, and other state colleges in Florida do not allow student athletes charged with felonies to participate in sporting events until the charge is dropped or reduced. Now, Williams was facing 9 felony counts, and that was reduced. He pleaded that down to 1, and he's supposed to be sentenced on August 12th. Now, the confusing thing, apparently, he will be allowed to play next season, but that isn't the way it was explained to me. Is, it's still, he would be charged with 1 felony. So I'm curious. Yeah, but apparently he still thinks he's definitely lawyered up and everything, so they must know what they're doing. I think the bottom line is we'll see Mikey Williams play for UCF next season. So we shall see. Stay tuned. Now, also staying with Memphis, Caleb Mills, transfer from Florida State. He underwent surgery on his left knee this week and will miss the rest of the season. That's a little bit of a concern for Memphis, who's kind of more forward heavy, where Caleb Mills was kind of like a pure shooting guard. The guys I think, that should benefit, the number one guy that comes to mind is Jaquan Walton. Now, this is a guy who's very athletic, was a tremendous scorer and also productive in other areas last year for Wichita State. Now we know Walton has a little bit of a checkered past and kind of got kicked out of Alabama. That's where you're supposed to play this year. But anyway, he hasn't really played up to his potential so far this year. But I think this will get Walton more playing time. And hopefully, maybe with more run, he'll get in a better rhythm. Another guy to watch get some playing time is freshman shooting guard Carl. I think it's Sharonfont. He played a little the other night when Memphis lost to Southern Florida. I believe they blew like a 20-point lead and ended up losing by 1 point. And speaking of upsets, one of the topics we'll be talking about next week is the rash of upsets. We were going to talk about that this week, but as I said, short version this week. All right. So now we're going to bring on Tre Mitchell, or I should say, roll that interview with Tre Mitchell. I spoke to Tre just before Kentucky went to Texas A&M, and they lost that game in overtime. It was a really good game. I think, a lot of people saying, I don't know, they were kind of like trashing Kentucky a little. And I'm like, it's an overtime loss on the road. This Kentucky team is tough to beat, if you ask me. Overtime loss on the road, if you're like looking at computer rankings, if you're thinking about it in that terms, is almost a win. So yeah, but yeah, let's roll that interview with Tre. Really interesting guy and really valuable member of this Kentucky squad because of his veteran leadership and his ability to be versatile. All right, today's special guest is Kentucky forward Tre Mitchell, who is averaging 13.2 points, 7.8 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 1.1 steals, and 1.3 blocks per game this season. He's also shooting 53% from the floor, 36% from deep, 72% from the free throw line for the 6th-ranked Wildcats. They are 12-2 at this point after a big win over Missouri on Monday night. Tre, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I think one of the highlights of Monday night's broadcast was Aura. I don't know if you know, they showed her picture. Is she with you right now?
No, not right now. I'm at the lodge right now, but a lot of my family and friends sent me some pictures of the TV with her on there when I was shooting free throw.
Okay, and she's 2 years old?
Yeah, she just turned 2 in December.
All right, so is my Mookie. So she's a Portuguese water dog, I think they said.
Yeah, that's what she is.
And how big is she?
I think she's about 40 pounds or so. She's
Oh,
not too big, but like
but
she's right there in the middle. She's a
she's
decent
not
size.
teeny either.
Yeah,
All right, cool. Where do you are you on campus
yeah. I'm in the Wildcat Lodge right now.
and they let you have animals?
No, so I don't stay here. I stay a little bit off campus in an apartment, and she's over there.
Ah, okay. All right, cool. Well, I can relate to you. I mean, the first thing that when I wake up in the morning is where's Mookie?
Yeah.
So all right. So before we talk about this season, since you've had quite the journey, I'd like to talk a little bit about that journey and your development as a player. So the thing I just learned, you were born in Germany, correct?
Yeah. My dad was stationed there in the military.
Okay. And so that makes you a dual citizen, right?
Yeah, I have. I think this might be my last year to get the dual citizenship, but I think that's something that my people are working on.
Yeah, I would. And one of the things I was going to ask is, has the national team over there ever contacted you?
Yeah, so it was more so in Canada when we played them,
Right.
and like after the game and stuff, my people got connected with them, and I spoke to their coach and another man that ran some stuff over there for their program. So I mean, it was kind of weird that it all kind of worked out that way, and we just ended up playing them, and it kind of came full circle.
Right, right. And they're the reigning world champs from World Cup.
Yeah.
Um, so coming out of high school, which your last 2 years of high school were in Connecticut, you were a top 100 recruit, and depending on where you look, your hometown is either Elizabeth, PA, or Pittsburgh. Which is it?
So Elizabeth is where I spend most of my time.
Okay, and but you're PA boy.
Yeah, yeah,
All
that's
right,
me.
and as am I. So I've been following your career since high school, and you started at UMass, which kind of surprised me a bit. I thought maybe you'd go to a place like Pitt, Penn State, or maybe even UConn. So why UMass?
So the, we'll start with why not Pitt.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed
For
you
me,
picked West Virginia, so I thought maybe there was something against Pitt.
yeah, for me, it's nothing really against Pitt itself. It was more so the location. You know, I wanted to be a little bit away from home, so I had less distractions. I knew if I went to Pitt that there would be a lot of people coming out of the woodworks and it would distract me from my craft. But UMass was a decision for me to immediately make an impact in college basketball. That's what I wanted to do. I knew I was realistic with myself and where I was at the time, and I knew if I chose a high major program, yeah, I might get some minutes, but I wouldn't have had a quarter of the impact that I had in the A10.
Right, right. And for those who don't know, you were averaging, I think your freshman year was 18 points per game. Your sophomore year, 19 points per game. Your rookie of the year, you were all conference both years. But the team didn't have a lot of success. So it wasn't surprising to me when you moved on. And you chose Texas. And if I remember correctly, there was a coaching change. I think Shaka Smart. That was the year Shaka Smart left and Chris Beard came in. But also I think there was a huge turnover and guys like Christian Bishop and Dessou from Vanderbilt and the kid who's now at Cal was a freshman. I mean, you guys had a whole host of forwards all coming in brand new to the system. Well, brand new coach too. I mean, the only holdover at forward, but he added to the logjam was Brock Cunningham. So also that year, were you injured that year or part of that year?
Yeah, towards the end, I mean, I guess it was more so the middle before I had left. I injured my ankle pretty bad, and I played on it for a little bit, and then it just like later down the road, I ended up having to get surgery. But
Right, right. So it turned out to be statistically overall, it was your worst season to date, or actually your worst season period. How disappointed were you at that point?
you know, it's kind of it is what it is type of thing. You know, I was out there doing what I could, but the environment that I was in, just the headspace I was in, just wasn't the right area for me at the time. You know, I was struggling with some things mentally, and at the end of the day, I had to take a step away from the team and away from the game of basketball for a little bit and work on myself.
Okay. And so then you go to West Virginia. You had a solid year last year and everything, you were all set to come back this year. And then Coach Huggins has some trouble and he ends up resigning. And you chose Kentucky. Again, you surprised me because they already had three very talented 7-footers. Now, I know you're not really a center, but a lot of times you end up playing there. And I wondered, is Tre going to be able to, playing time? So I thought that was a little bit of a gamble on your part. Well, obviously, it paid off, but, what were you thinking?
Um, for me, throughout the process, once I got into the portal and I got on campus and I just watched the team, I saw an area that I could fit in and that I could benefit this this team's roster. You know, most people look at me more as a four now than a five, even though I'm capable of playing the five position, the small ball five. But I just knew that that four position it was lacking in a leadership kind of mentality out there. And I think from the four spot, there's a lot of different things you can do when it comes to other teams' matchups and how you're running plays and running offense. And I just saw myself as a versatile four that is able to step out there and kind of do whatever you need me to do. I wasn't really concerned about playing time or whether or not I was going to get on the court. I knew that I was going to find a way regardless because there's something that I can bring to the table.
Right, right. And that certainly has been the case. It was kind of funny the way it all worked out because all 3 7-footers, for one reason or another, couldn't play immediately. And all of a sudden, Kentucky's playing small ball. And, I was skeptical at first, but the minute I saw you guys play on the court, I'm like, oh my God, they are so fast. And then I was concerned when the players when Anyensu and Bradshaw were coming back. Then I was like, oh, I hope this doesn't mess up the chemistry. But it's worked out really, really well for you. And now when I look at it, I'm thinking, Tre is kind of like, if you ask me, the MVP of this team. And part of it is because of your experience and your leadership. Is that something? It sounds like something you kind of expected a role you expected to fill.
The MVP, that's for other people to decide, But me, I see an opportunity as a leader for these guys because, like you said, I've been through it. I've played basketball at all levels in college. I've seen the worst of the worst and the best of the best. I've seen everything on the road. I've heard every single heckling chant possible. But on top of that, I'm grateful to be able to be here and to be around guys that are like sponges and soak up knowledge because it's one thing to have information and say it, but it's another thing for people to actually listen to you and apply it.
Right, right. So you mentioned, that you are 4, but you could play the 5. I was just watching, the Missouri game the other night, and I'm thinking, I'm not so sure he couldn't play the 3 at this point. And I think back to your days at UMass. No, really, seriously, at UMass, you were heavy in the post, heavy in the pick and roll, also pretty heavy in ISO. And now you're more perimeter oriented. You're bringing the ball up the court. You're making moves off the dribble. Your jump shot looks really smooth. Every part of your game looks more smooth than you were at UMass. At UMass, you look like a big. And now I'm thinking, he could play some, at the 3. What do you think about that?
I mean, that was something that I was working on at West Virginia. Like the entire summer, I worked on expanding my craft and just being able to do absolutely everything out there. I mean, if I stayed at West Virginia and we had the roster that we originally had before everything got all hectic, they planned on playing me at the 3 a good bit. And like we were playing, there was moments where I'm coming off pick and rolls and I'm being the distributor there. But that's just it's part of the process. I worked on it, so like I know I have it and I'm capable of doing it, but I'm willing to do whatever the team needs me to do here.
Have you also, to me, you look, I don't know if I want to say smaller, more cut, maybe even slimmer,
Yeah, I mean, I think I was like 240 something at UMass, and then went to Texas. I dropped to like 205 when I was
Wow.
going through my stuff. So then West Virginia, I started to build it back on, and then here I built it on even more. So now I'm sitting at a comfortable 229, 230, and I think that's where my game is its best, between that 230, 235 range, because it keeps me quick and mobile, but it allows me to be physical and play whatever position you need me to play.
Right, right. Who would you attribute you becoming more of a, is there one particular person who's really helped you? You've been all over, so I wondered if there was one particular person that really helped you develop your perimeter game.
That would definitely go to my stepfather, Tony Bergeron,
Ah,
because he's developed my game since I was a junior in high school. He knows my game in and out. He knows he knows the right things to add and when to add them. Like he's just, I call him a basketball guru because like that he's so intelligent about the game of basketball. I still have yet to have a moment where he's been wrong when it comes to the game, believe it or not. But he's developed me throughout my whole process, and I can't be more grateful for what he's done.
All right. How about Mom? Because I know Mom played at Charleston.
Yeah, my mom taught me all the basics when I was younger. You know, she taught me everything when it comes to footwork and post stuff and learn how to box out right. And but she was more of a she's not allowed to leave the paint type of player. So I had to expand to some other areas and get some knowledge from other people when it comes to that.
Right, right. So you have been coached by Chris Beard, a potential Hall of Famer. Huggy Bear is Huggy Bear in the Hall of Fame now? I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's in the Hall of Fame, and Coach Calipari's in the Hall of Fame. How would you compare the three?
Oh
Because
man, I
I
don't know
would,
about
if I would interject, I would say that probably Beard and Huggy Bear are a lot closer in personalities than Calipari.
um
That's my
I
that's my guess.
honestly I would say that Hugs and Cal are a little bit closer in personalities than Hugs and Beard. You know, Beard is more of a he's more of a screamer. You know, he likes to scream and he likes to have things done the way he wants them done. You know,
Right.
but Hugs people. Well, before I got there, people were telling me Hugs was crazy. Hugs was screaming and all this stuff, but when I got there, maybe it was just me. Maybe it was the team we had, and he knew the experience we had on the roster. But he seemed calmer most days than crazy, and he was actually very understanding when it came to the way that us players saw the game, and he was open ears and willing to listen to people. But on top of that, Hugs was one of the first coaches besides my stepfather that really showed me that like it's not all about basketball. He cares about who you are, how you're doing as a person as well. And that's where like Cal comes in. Cal's like he's he's like a father figure that he's gonna push you when he needs to push you, but he also cares about your well being and how you're doing off the court. And that's another thing. Cal's pretty open ears. I want to say to most people, but not to everybody. You know how that gets. He doesn't want to hear from everybody all the time. But unfortunately, I'm one of the people that are able to get in his ear a little bit and explain to him how we see some things out on the court. But yeah, when it comes to comparison of the three, I would definitely say Hugs and Cal are a bit closer.
Okay. One of the most, and you probably just a little tyke. I don't even know if you were born, but when West Virginia was either in the Elite Eight or Final Four, Deshaun Butler, who was an All-American, he tore his ACL in March Madness in that Elite Eight or Final Four game, and he was on the ground, and Coach Huggins came out, and it's one of the most touching moments I ever saw. You know, it's like one of those things you just won't forget because you could just tell the way the two were interacting. Butler was crying, and you could just tell that it really hurt Huggins, not because of what was going on in the game, because he felt for Deshaun. At least that's the impression I got.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there is more to Coach Huggins than most people know.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen videos of that clip, and that's something that kind of breaks that narrative that people have about Hugs. And you can see how much care that he has for his players. Like those clips really show you the relationship that's going on behind all the work that's being put in.
So as a player, you're pretty much kind of a do-it-all, especially this year. You've really boosted your assists. What would you say is the most overlooked aspect of your game when you hear people in the media, you know, talking about what you can and can't do? What do you think there's something that the people just don't realize Maybe because it's just you can't necessarily express it on the court because of your role or whatever.
Um, that's a good question. Before I would say passing, but I'm in a position now where I'm able to distribute the ball and I'm trusted to make decisions. I feel like I get up my fair share of shots and on all three levels. I've shown flashes of a lot of different things.
How about defensively? Defensively,
Yeah, defensively, I feel like I've definitely grown a lot defensively. Because I was big before, kind of struggled moving my feet, but now that I've lined up and I've worked on it, I think that people are going to start to see that I'm able to guard multiple positions as well, keeping dudes in front of me and just making them take a tough shot. Because I know that's an area where people often look at me as like he's a little bit slower on the ball, but in reality, I'm more than capable of doing it. And I think that my my defensive positioning has gotten a lot better throughout my career as well. Just understanding where to be on defense, the right rotations, and being able to whether it be rotate up or rotate out. Like there was the clip in Louisville where I think I was in a ball screen coverage, and then we rotated like four different times, and then my man I think popped, and there was four of us in the action. We rotated, and then I had to sprint all the way through the corner and got that block on the three in the corner. So just that defensive awareness, I'd say.
okay, all right. All right, so this is a question I hesitate to ask because I'm always afraid I'm gonna be like a kiss of death or something like that. But I said on our last show that I thought, and I surprised my co-host when I said this. I said I can't get this thought out of my mind. We had a Christmas break, and over Christmas break, kept on thinking the same thing. Kentucky's going to win the national championship. They just are so good. And people, I'm not the only person that's starting to talk this way. How do you, how would you sum up this team, and what are your feelings about, your where you fit in the big scheme of things, against
Um,
teams like Kansas, Arizona, Purdue, and
yeah, I mean this team is loaded as you can see. We have I think we have everything we need to go win us one. There's no reason that we shouldn't be in the running for one. We have the coaches, we have the experience that we need, but we have the talent and we have the basketball players that we need. We have I would say over the course of me being here, the growth that these young dudes have shown in such a short time, it's just going to keep going that way over the next few months. Now that we're in SEC play, games are getting a little bit harder, a little bit chippier. You're going to experience some environments that dudes haven't experienced before, and they're just going to stack up experience off of this. And in the grand scheme of things, I can't see a reason why we're not in the running. We play fast. We have more than enough scoring power. We have everything we need in that sense, but we also have a growing defensive awareness, I would say, because there might be guys that didn't have to defend where they came from. Now that we're getting into SEC play, it's like, okay, most of these games are going to come down to one or two possessions. You have to lock in. Every single possession matters. And being that there's so much emphasis on it, dudes are going to start to see things better and understand things better. And their growth as players is just going to continue to stack up. So like I said, I really don't think there's any reason we shouldn't be in the running come down the stretch unless refs just start not liking us or something.
One thing I've been worried about, obviously, was that
I do.
That's what I thought. Is he healthy now?
Yeah. He's getting there.
Okay.
He's close.
All right. Well, good to see him walking around and everything. So, one thing I'm a little worried about is especially teams like Mississippi State, Tennessee, maybe even Auburn, is physicality. Have you told the guys, you're gonna end up in you're gonna end up in some grinders, when you play Tennessee, sometimes you can't escape, or Mississippi State, you can't escape, getting in a 55-54 battle with those teams.
Yeah, I think that's something they starting to understand a little bit more. Just not even before SEC play, things started to get a little chippy and physical, but I don't think it's nothing these dudes can't handle. These dudes have a competitive fight, a competitive spirit about them that they're not backing down. They don't care if you're 27 trying to come at them. They're gonna find a way to answer, and they're not backing down for anything.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to ask you a personal question. And you're not allowed to say video games. Like, you can't say video games. Too many. I've had so many guests answer the question with video games. That's not allowed anymore. So give me a side interest. It doesn't have to be like a hobby. It could be, just something that, I don't know, you like to read about, or you like to watch, watch things, or it could be a side sport, maybe another sport that you like to watch, or just some interest beside aura, of course, that you like to do or interest you.
I would say that I'm big on expanding my mind. That's something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy finding new perspectives and expanding just knowledge. So like number one thing I do to expand my knowledge is just read the Bible. It's just a way that overwhelms me with peace and helps me understand things at a greater scale. But on top of that, there's other types of books I like to read. I mean, a lot of people they're called like self-help books, but whenever I read them, I don't see it as necessarily self-help. I see it more as like a perspective shift. It challenges the way that you view things. Like I like things that challenge my mind and challenge the way I see things and the way I see the world. So, I mean, but other than that, I'm playing video games or I'm with my
dog. You broke the rules. All right. So, I would think that you're in a good place and you seem happy. You seem really happy?
Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing that can take your joy away when it comes to the van above.
All right. Well, Tre, it was great talking to you, and I wish you and the team the best this season. Maybe we can stay in touch, and when you're going through the draft process, we can have you back on the show, and you can let us know how that's going.
Yeah. Just stay connected.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I also appreciate your time. It was great talking to Tre. And now we'll move on to our picks of the week, which are just basically going to be Saturday's games and Sunday's games. And then we'll be back next week to do next week's games. All right. So we'll start off with Baylor at Texas. Now, Texas has just lost a couple of games. Baylor lost the game too. I can't. All these teams in the Big 12 are starting to beat up on each other, and it's hard to keep track on who beat whom. This is a tough one for me. If Texas hadn't lost the two games, I definitely would be picking them. Man, this is tough. I'm going to go with Texas, but I got to say, yeah, I'm going to go with Texas, thinking they're going to turn it around. I'm thinking this is kind of like a fluke as opposed to how they really are. And I think they'll get healthy at home. All right, Marquette at St. John's at Madison Square Garden. This one's interesting. Rick Pitino, by the way, who missed earlier this week, missed a game because of COVID, is already back. I hear he's going to be coaching today. Marquette has kind of hit a little bit of a slide. They got healthy, beating Villanova this week, but they are a little banged up. Chase Ross, one of their young wings, he hasn't been able to play. And Sean Jones, a little dynamic point guard who backs up Kolek. And he's kind of important because, he could be a spark plug, if Kolek, when Marquette has been losing these games, usually it's when Kolek goes cold. And so you could always turn to Sean Jones, who's just, really, really fast and a good shooter. And they're just not going to have that option now. So that kind of hurts. I think Marquette's the better team. St. John's really does have a lot of depth and has been playing good. They kind of really muck it up. And I'm going to go with Marquette. But again, close game. But then again, that's why we pick these games for picks of the week. All right, next up is Creighton at Seton Hall. And man, I watched Connecticut beat Creighton, and they didn't let Creighton breathe. I mean, every Connecticut player seemed to be in the shirt of a Creighton player. Of course, Donovan Clingan came back, played some limited minutes in that game. One thing I failed to mention in the notebook. So he's back in action, not playing, not playing his full ready minutes, didn't start, but he's definitely back and working his way into playing shape. All right, back to Creighton Seton Hall. I don't know. I think Creighton gets healthy here. Seton Hall's a tough team. We've seen them already beat 2 or 3 top 25 teams. Again, they're another team that likes to muck it up. I don't know. I just think Creighton's got to bounce back from that horrendous performance against Connecticut, which I don't know whether to blame that on Creighton's offense or Connecticut's defense, but I'm leaning more toward Connecticut's defense. All right, now we have another game, Miami, who's struggling. Just lost at home to Florida State. They've lost several at home versus Syracuse. Both of these teams are in the middle of the pack of the ACC. They're kind of fighting for their lives in order to get into the tournament. Not something we thought Miami would be doing at this stage of the game. We considered them a top 25 team, but they haven't been in the top 25 since early in the season and just haven't quite looked right. One thing I know with Miami is, and we talked about this in the preseason, they just don't have any interior presence in terms of shot blocking. And if Norchad Omier gets in foul trouble or gets hurt, this team is just lost without him. They're not going to have a lot of shot rim protection, obviously, which is going to allow Syracuse's guards to they love to attack the rim. Again, close, but I'm going with a lot of teams to get healthy today. I'm going to go with Miami, but I certainly could see Syracuse winning. All right, now we have another tough one. Oklahoma at Cincinnati. Cincinnati's had some tough losses. When this team loses, it barely loses. I really like the Cincinnati team. They have a nice combination of size, defense, shooting. I'd say probably is their weakness. I don't know. I think Cincinnati has a little more than Oklahoma. I think they're a better team and they're home. I'm going to go with Cincinnati. All right, we have San Diego State at Boise State. I know Danny Trammell might be out for San Diego State. He's one of the many players that are coming down with illness. Boise State looked great the other day against Nevada. Tough. The Mountain West is, again, it seems like every year it comes down to a 4-team race. And this year it's Colorado State, Boise State, San Diego State, Nevada, but there's another team in there and might be the best of the bunch. That's New Mexico. So there's 5 teams. Looking like the Mountain West is probably going to get 3 to 4 teams in the tournament. Back to this game. I don't know. I'm going to go with San Diego State. I definitely think they're the more talented team, but on the road, they already burned me once. They went to the Pit last week and just got smoked. But that place is just, the Pit is back for New Mexico. I'm going to go with San Diego, but Man, I'm not in love with any of these games. All right, here's a game I feel confident about. Alabama undefeated in the SEC so far at Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins this game. I don't know if it's easy, but I'm pretty confident Alabama is going to take their first conference loss in this game. All right, we got Iowa State and TCU, both ranked teams. TCU's home, been playing well. I'm going to have to go with TCU because I don't know if Lipsy is going to be playing for Iowa State, and that's a huge loss. So I got to go with TCU there. All right. Clemson at Florida State. Florida State's back, man. They're right in the mix in the ACC. And Clemson's kind of been teetering, though I will say, people haven't talked about it a lot. But Clemson hasn't really been 100% for the entire season. Clemson has kind of been up and down, more up than down. But one thing, we haven't seen from this team is they haven't shot the ball as well as we thought they would. And one of the reasons for that is Alex Hemingway, who's always been a spark plug off the bench, senior shooting guard. He's been out all year with injury. Haven't heard any word when he's coming back. And this doesn't reflect on today's game, but I'm just pointing out, that Hemingway has been out for this team, and they might be a little different team with him. And I'm surprised that they haven't. They redshirted Air Force transfer Jake Heidbreeder, and Jake is about the same size as Hemingway and also a sharpshooter. And I thought, if Hemingway was going to be out for a length of time, they would, activate Heidbreeder as, kind of a spark plug off the bench, because that's where this team really struggles with shooting. Joe Girard has been doing his best. And also good news, Jack Clark, who's more of a defensive specialist, rebounder, shot blocker, defender type of guy. He just came back, and he's missed a good portion of the season, kind of been in and out of lineup. So that will help them on the defensive end. So, all right. So back to the game. I think Clemson is the better team, especially when healthy. Both of these teams are definitely suspect on the offensive end, especially from a shooting standpoint. So, it's probably going to be a slugfest. I'm going to go with FSU. They've been winning a lot of ugly games. And I expect this to be another one. BYU is the next. This is another. Both teams are ranked. BYU is at Texas Tech. Very different teams. BYU is, a shooting team. Texas Tech is more of a grinder team. I know BYU is somewhat banged up. Fuz Traore, one of their big men, great rebounder, great defender, especially interior. He has been hurt a good portion of the year. He came back for a few games and re-aggravated his hamstring injury, so he won't be available. That doesn't really affect their offense as much as it does in terms of rebounding and shooting. And also, Trevin Nell, super sharpshooter, senior shooting guard. He's questionable for the game. BYU is very deep, though, I will say. So I think they can overcome these injuries. Boy, this is tough. It's kind of offense versus defense. I'm going to go with Texas Tech because they're home. Sorry for the delay, but I had to think about it. It's again, folks, we don't pick we only pick the games that are worthy of thought. We don't pick the gimmies. All right, now we have UConn at Villanova. I can't go against UConn. Not when I saw how they destroyed Creighton. I think Villanova is in flux. They keep on messing with their lineups. Some days they look great. Some days they look terrible. I got to go with steady UConn, who is now moved to the #1 spot in the country. All right. Next, we have Ole Miss at Auburn, both ranked teams. Ole Miss has been playing well. Auburn's been playing better, and Auburn is a crazy place to play. I got to go with Auburn. All right. St. Mary's in San Francisco. Believe it or not, this is the battle for first place in the WCC. Not Gonzaga, because they lost to Santa Clara. So this is for first place. Jonathan Mogbo has just been crazy for San Francisco. This guy is a human pogo stick, block shots, dunks, tremendous dunks, leads the country in dunks, he's I think second in nation field goal percentage. But the other thing about this guy is his passing. He is a tremendous passer. I mean, just out of this world. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, St. Mary's has really turned it around after their early season struggles. They're looking much more like the St. Mary's that we picked to win this conference. By the way, San Francisco is more than just Mogbo. They have some really good players, including Mongolian Mike. USF is home. I'm going to go with them. I think nobody on the court. I think Magobo is sorry, I struggle with that name, but I really think he has a really good shot as an NBA player. He certainly looks the part, and I think he's going to be the only NBA player, real NBA prospect on the court tonight. And yeah, I'm going to go with that. All right, 2 games on Sunday. We have Michigan State at Maryland. And of course, College Park is a really tough place to play. Michigan State, I picked them Final Four. So did a lot of other people. And of course, they haven't lived up to that. But Maryland hasn't played, what we expect them to be. Though they have looked better lately. I don't know. This comes down to who can make their shots. I'm really surprised that Tom Izzo hasn't thought about playing Xavier Booker, their top recruit. He was close to a top 10 5-star guy. I know Booker isn't the traditional Michigan State banging center, and playing him, probably he's more suited to perhaps play at the power forward, which would mean Malik Hall might need to do something else, or might cut in his playing time. I just think this team needs a spark, and Sissoko really hasn't played well. They really have no interior offense. Now, again, Booker's not really a post scorer. He's more of a perimeter oriented big, but I don't know. But again, I digress. I'm going to go with Michigan State here. I just think if both teams hit on all cylinders, Michigan State would win. I just think Michigan State has more talent. So yeah, I'm going to give Michigan State one more shot. I'm giving a lot of teams second and third chances here. All right, so the last game, we have Oregon at Utah. And when I put this game on the slate, it seemed like a toss-up. But now Utah's point guard, Rolly Worcester, is questionable for the game. Also, I know Lawson Lovering. Has he been starting for them? And let me see. I know he's played well. He started about half their games. But he's played really well. He's a high recruit who transferred from Colorado. Has been playing, and he might miss this game. Now, they do have good depth up front. Of course, they have Brandon Carlson, who's kind of a a 7-foot power forward, but he can also play center. Good shot blocker, decent rebounder, and they also have one of the best kept secrets in the country in Keba Kita. He's an undersized, but very strong, very active and athletic center, who can rebound, defend, just, raises the team's play with energy. So he'll most likely get the start if Lovering isn't available. But the injury that could. Oh, and they also just got back Devin Smith, the point guard transfer from Georgia Tech, who was one of those guys who was affected by the 2-time transfer rules. So the cupboard's not bare if Worcester and Lovering don't play, but it certainly affects their depth. Meanwhile, you have Oregon coming off their first loss at Colorado. Wait, this is tough because we know Biddle and Dante aren't 100% yet. I don't know. Both teams have been playing well. I'm going to go with Oregon. I'm going with a lot of road teams today. I'm going to go with Oregon. But I wouldn't be surprised because, like I said, Utah has good replacements, even if they're not 100%. I don't know. I'm going to go with Oregon. I'm just thinking they're going to bounce back from that really bad game at Colorado. That's what I'm thinking. All right. So now we're going to move on to the mailbag. And we actually got a couple of these questions over the Christmas break, and we're just getting to some of them. And so we have one from Vince, one from Cody. The one from Vince says, I know Rich often talks about the Sagarin ratings. So do you know why the Sagarin ratings are not updated for this season? Okay, so Sagarin ratings. The way I hear it is that Sagarin, who I believe is in his mid to late 70s, is just decided not to do them anymore. Maybe he just feels his ratings were, similar to Ken Palm. They use different formulas. I know at one point, Jeff Sagarin is from all everything I've heard. I never met him, but pretty eccentric guy. He's an MIT genius and who just happened to love sports. But I know when the NCAA was using his ratings for football to make for the college playoff selections, and even the NCAA tournament selections for basketball, I know he uses margin of victory, and they wanted him to tone that down. And I think there was some kind of resistance, and I don't know if he ever did. Especially in basketball, for example, they'll say, well, so-and-so just got a quad 1 win. Okay. But at the end of the season, that might not be a quad 1 win. It might be a quad 2 win or a quad 3 win. I'll give you a good example. Let's talk about Providence, who just lost, Bryce Hopkins. Providence was probably an NCAA tournament team. They're probably looking like maybe the 4th or 5th best team in the Big East, going to be in the big dance. Probably in the computer rankings, we're going to be like in the top 40. Or maybe top 30. But where are they going to be? So if you beat Providence when Hopkins was playing, it probably went down as a quad 1 win or quad 2, let's say. I don't know what. But if Providence doesn't play up to par, that win could be diminished. Now, to me, that's crazy. That's craziness. What you earned on that day is what should matter. Not what the team is doing now. It should matter what that team was on that day. As far as I know, Sagarin's ratings didn't do stuff like that. it basically looked at the system. It looked at the ratings of who you played, and it emphasized actually more of what you did toward the end of the season or what you're doing now. And that's why I always kind of preferred Sagarin. Now, maybe KenPom does the same. I don't know. I never compared them. I just always used Sagarin, always found them to be extremely helpful. They existed long before KenPom did. And they suited my purposes. Now, like, if you would look at team, X, and Sagarin might have them like number 52, and KenPom might have them like number 63, but they'd always be in the ballpark, but the thing that I always understood about Sagarin was that they emphasized margin of victory, at least to some degree, and also considered what was happening recently, and didn't go back and say, okay, you were really, and we know, look at Oregon, how Oregon is getting healthy now. They're not going to be the same team, assuming everybody stays healthy. They're not going to be the same team that they were early in the season. I'm trying to think of another team Wake Forest. If you beat Wake Forest, early in the season, then that's not the same as beating Wake Forest, assuming, again, they stay healthy. It won't be the same as beating them at the end of the season. We know this as humans, but the NCAA doesn't want to think about that. But anyway, Sagarin has decided not to do them. And on that note, we internally here at Hoops Prospects have been trying to work it out so we can get the data to not only do Sagarin-like readings for college basketball, but for basketball, period, and putting everybody on the same scale. So you'd be able to separate it by leagues, but it would include G League, NBA, top European leagues. And so you could judge just how different these teams are, and I have them all on the same scale. The problem is getting the data. But to answer your question, Vince, Sagarins don't exist anymore. So I guess you're going to have to use KenPom or something else. I know Sports Reference has rankings. I don't like ESPN's BPI. I think they kind of work like the net a little more than the others. So they just kind of consider like wins and losses and don't consider when they happened or by how much they happened. Again, I don't know the formulas. These are just how I feel about them. Being a computer programmer myself, I kind of know how these things work, and that's just my guess. But anyway, we're going to try to replace Sagarin, and we'll see where that goes. All right. So, another internal question, kind of. Cody asked, what happened to your YouTube page? You used to post some good stuff on a regular basis. Cody, you are correct. We did, and we're trying to rectify that. We're kind of growing faster than we can keep up with. And we got our hands in all kinds of baskets or a lot of balls in the air at once. And, but we just have an intern who's going to be with us for 2 years from the University of San Francisco, Zach. And Zach is going to be running our YouTube page. And I hope within, by next month, February, that you'll start seeing our YouTube page come alive again. He's going to be working on videos or posting old videos that we've made, but we never got them on YouTube. So look for that. Our YouTube page is coming back. All right, folks, that wraps it up for today. Short and sweet. We will be back next week with a normal episode. Hopefully I'll have a co-host. Today it was only Mookie and I. Mookie, do you have any final thoughts? No, doesn't have any final thoughts. All right. So next week, we're going to be talking about all the upsets and what we take away from that. We'll have our normal notebook. We will, I don't know if we're going to have a guest. That's not set up. We'll have our normal stock report. talking about who's hot and who's not, and who's a NBA player and who's not an NBA player. We'll also be talking about, we just recently did a collective or composite rankings, draft board rankings. We updated our rankings yesterday. And along with that, when we did it, we compared our rankings to the biggest draft sites that are out there, just to get a sense of how we are thinking and compare it to what other sites are thinking. And we're going to kind of talk about, who's, this is a really interesting year for the draft. And so there's it's really weird how different people are thinking this year. Everybody's rankings look so different. I've said, I don't know. I thought I said on the show a few weeks ago, maybe before the Christmas break, that this is a wide open race for the number one pick. And I don't know, 15 might be a little high, but I maybe it's more like 10. I certainly think there are at least eight guys, at least eight, maybe 10 or 12 that could be the number one NBA draft pick. And in fact, we've just changed our number one pick on our draft board, and it's now Zachary Richiche, the French product. And he's not Victor Wembanyama, but in fact, in some ways, I will say Richiche is superior to Wembanyama, but overall not as productive. Not as impactful, though. Again, I will say, for example, he does have a higher plus minus. Wembanyama's, I think, was like 3.2 last year. Richiche is like a 6.3 so far this season. He's also playing in Euro Cup, something Wembanyama didn't do. So not only is he playing in the French league, but he's also playing about twice as many games by playing in Euro Cup. So we already he's already played like 30, I think 33 games. No, 37, I think. So big sample already. But this could change. A lot of people would call your number one. He's, some people are still sticking with that. Some people are not. And so, yeah, right now, Victor Richiche is on top of in our latest rankings, which came out yesterday. So we'll be talking about our rankings and everybody else's, and making some interesting comparisons and seeing, just doing some general draft talk along with our regular stock report. So that's what's coming up this week. So again, shout out to Dante Maddox for trying to participate. Sorry that win streak was lost last night, and don't blame it on me. And hopefully everyone gets healthy. I know Drew has been really sick, so Drew, get better. And we'll see you next week, folks.